Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth, number 702. Yes, it's still going. So this is about two things I've seen recently. Documentary dramas. Well, one's a documentary drama, one's a documentary. The first one, I did mention it in the last one actually, is about ITV's Breathtaking, which was about the pandemic, COVID-19, the UK's experience. It was based on, I don't know, in the last Pursuit of Truth, the actual lady, is it Dr. Rachel Clark? Is that the right name? Her memoirs. She worked in a hospital during COVID-19, and they've taken that to make this drama. Obviously, all the people and the scenarios are based on her memoir, but the actual characters and the people dying obviously are made up for obvious reasons. I know some truthers will think, wow, yeah, it's so easy to make people believe in a thing by, was it a picture tells 1,000 words? Seeing is believing. And I know there are a lot of truthers that have an issue with the COVID-19, more specifically to the vaccination rather than the no hospitals side of it. I think that speaks to the fact that we now live in a time where we don't believe things. And it is very difficult to believe things because obviously a lot of truth has come from either 9/11 or flat earth or both. And I think what it does is it, even if neither of those are true, true or not true, which depending on which is the fact, it doesn't really matter. What matters is it opens your awakening to, it makes you woke, as it were. It wakes you up from just believing everything you're told. And yet it'd be great if we lived in a world where we could believe everything we're told. And we know we don't live in a world like that because of the things, of the conspiracies that have come out, what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, Primodos and all those other things, and lots of bigger cases that are made into movies and documentaries and we all know about. We know that people in charge, leaders, companies have lied and done things. We know that's part of the human makeup. I don't believe it's intrinsic, but it is something that we have the ability to do, which is lie to each other and do these terrible things to each other. Part of that is because of the system that we're brought up into, which segregates us as human beings into these little boxes, whether it's countries, whether it's families, whatever box it is that separates us one another and allows us to then compete against each other, whereas the intrinsic truth, as I would put it, I need to make a poem of that one day, is that we're all one, we're all human beings, and we all should be finding a better way for each other. Anyway, I'm going off track, but yeah, the thing that happens with truthers is they become awakened of thinking about things rather than just accepting what you see. It's, wait a minute, is this true or is it not true? And yes, that can lead to conspiracies or down the rabbit hole, some people like to call it. The problem is without it, it leads you to just believe everything that you hear and read. And as we know, that's not always the case. It is up to us as individuals not to just, because we've got the thing of the television, the news and newspapers, we've given that task away to other people to truth tell. And then we leave it up to them and we say, well, they've said it, so it must be true. But of course, we know there are journalistic pieces and news pieces that have turned out to be fabrications or lies and etc. In recent cases, the Diana one with Martin Bashir, there's loads of them, isn't there? We all know about the Jimmy Savile case or Epstein or Weinstein, these individuals that are masqueraded through life. So that's what I mean. It's intrinsically every single person's duty to find the truth, the pursuit of truth, as it were. And so that awakens in those people that go on these journeys of trying to find truth. And yes, you can get led down. Well, the thing is, at the end of it, what you come to is a realization of, wait a minute, how do I know what is true and what's not true? Did the moon landing take place? Is it that the moon landing took place, but the video that we saw isn't the actual footage of it? Is it possible to leave the moon's atmosphere and those ships that we see wrapped in tinfoil? Do we live on a globe or a flat Earth? The things that have taken place on the place we call Earth Are all those events real? Were some of them, allowed to happen or instigated or, this, that, and the other? Is there a reason why people would do these types of things? The killing of JFK, lots of these different things. I don't want to go off into things because I don't really know. I think the main thing is that all human beings should have an open mind, but all human beings have to be careful of the fact that one other human being can lie to you and mislead you. Now, you don't know who that human being is. It could be someone who tells you the truth. It could be someone who tells you the lie. So you don't know, and you've got to be very careful. That's the thing where that's why we're each given the senses and individuality. We're all given the senses of brains and eyes and nose and smell and all that stuff so that we can navigate it and work it ourselves. But we've often given that away to major institutions and in the hope that they're telling us the truth. But we have found out that that's not always the best for us. Anyway, so it's going off on a tangent, but yeah, the Breathtaking was really interesting, and a few points that picked up on it. I did mention the last one about the idea that they never told us that they had to choose between who had a ventilator, who didn't. That whole life and death. The fact from where I'm sitting, from the point of view that I don't believe we should live in the system that we live within, that we should live in a system without money and without the division of humanity, and that would be the betterment of humanity if us all work together. I know that sounds all trippy and kumbaya and all that kind of stuff, but why would you choose a system that segregates us and makes us fight against each other and hate each other and have a worse existence? Because we have to earn money to get the things that are all freely given to us. This place that we found ourselves upon is freely given to every one of us. No one can own it. No one can possess it. I've gone off on a tangent that I've forgotten where I was going with that. But the other point that I thought was interesting with Breathtaking was, isn't it? When you go off and then you can't remember what you're going to say, it's most frustrating. It'll come to me. I just have to think. What could have been about? So I mentioned, what did I just actually talk about? How can I not remember what I just talked about 1 minute ago? I hate when this happens to me. I don't know if this is an autistic thing or what, but I often get this where I have these like brain freezes where usually it's when I'm getting pressured. So talking about the system, talking about money. Oh yeah, in the sense that if we lived in the world that I want to live in, where we didn't, COVID may not have been the same, because by this time we would have been working together. There wouldn't have been the need for competing for money and all this kind of stuff. So that was to do with Breathtaking, to do with the hospitals having to make the decision of life or death. What was the other thing that interested me was to do with coverage. Yes. I don't know if this was in the drama or if this was actually, it was Dr. Rachel Clark on The Pursuit of Truth on Sky News, on the previous one, where she mentioned about TV coverage, no journalists being allowed in. And I thought that at the time, this was a major thing. You got a lot of people on Facebook and YouTube who were saying no hospitals. They were editing videos. And obviously there were parts of the hospitals that didn't have people in them and they cut them off and did all that kind of stuff. And it's easy to think, is it a false flag? Or all these people really sick? Because it seemed like such an extreme thing. We never lived through this. We never seen thousands of people being claimed to die every single day. This is something that maybe in the Second World War, that generation would be more used to. But you never see these bodies, And of course because we live in an age of having to see everything, because seeing is believing, and because we're in the satellite age, as it were, where we can see every single country like that. Our generation before this weren't able to do this. When I was young, we weren't able to do this, but now we are. We can see everything within matters of minutes, everywhere. So we expect that kind of proof now, where generation before didn't. So when we don't see it, we start thinking, why are they not showing it? This must be, and that's what leads to that conspiratorial mindset. I don't like using that word because it's an FBI loaded word, but so it would. Personally, I don't know why. There must have been CCTV cameras that could have captured the footage for prosperity, or for showing on the news that this is what's going on. The problem is there's also sanitization when it comes to the news. So like this is the real world we're living in. People die. There's murder. There's wars. There's things like that. Yes, I know we have to make sure that children don't see these things because we don't want to warp their minds. But adults should be seeing these things, so we realise this is us. This could be us. Just because it's not doesn't mean you shouldn't see it. As long as it's not going to do you psychological damage, you should at least have the choice. So after 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or a special channel, they should be able to show these things. Yeah, I know it would have been distressing to see ward and ward of people sick, and I know people still would have said, "Well, they're faking it." Some people, there's no, unless they're actually physically there, and even then, you can fake anything in this day and age, with money and with time and people. But I suppose you've got to have some point where you've got to believe. Who are you going to believe? If you're not going to believe anyone, that's a very small world we live in. So, but I think, they should have been. I mean, maybe journalists being let in, didn't need to do that because they had doctors already in there. Everyone has phones. Everyone had phones. They should have been allowed. The problem is obviously their patients. But maybe they could have asked patients, can we film? I don't know whether because it's a public place they wouldn't have to do that. I don't know what. But that could have all been worked out. And they could have filmed it. Or they could have blocked out the faces so you could see. And I know there were some bits of that in Italy. We saw bits of that. And I think we did see at the beginning. But there wasn't very much of it. And I think that's the same thing like we see with the difference with the protests about Gaza and Ukraine. We don't see very much of the war in Ukraine. You see one building being blown up and no people getting, whereas with Gaza, we've seen the devastation at a lot closer level, a lot more depth. And in this day and age, that's important because that's what gets you message. That's why the protests are happening, whereas the protest for Ukraine isn't in the same way. And that's why there seems to be whereas they're both kind of similar stories. The same with COVID. Because that wasn't done, that's what I think led to that spiritual. So it's interesting to hear her talking about that. And I think that was a big mistake that the government made by not showing these things. I think we need to sort of get past this thing on the news and media about our sensitivities, because this is real life. People are going through this. People are suffering. We should be showing. Like when I saw the film Platoon, I know I mentioned a lot. It made me change my, because previously I'd seen John Mills and John Wayne or whoever it was making these films, and it all seems like there's no blood, everyone dies like that, and there's no pain, there's no suffering. Whereas when you saw Platoon, it was like, oh my God, this is what war's really like. It is painful, it's terrible, it's not something to be championed. It is the worst thing. And the same when we see this Gaza thing, we see the suffering. We should, when it comes to wars, especially if we're going to participate in them, as a country, then we should be seeing that so we can see what it's really like. Because it's too easy to, sanitize it, and then people don't, think, oh, it's fine. I don't mind us going to war. I don't mind us doing this. But you do mind when you see children and women getting killed. When you see, well, everyone is a family of each other. Everyone has a family, and everyone has them. The problem is a lot of people, the wars are actually about the system. The system you're brought in brainwashes you into a certain way, and I use that in a non-negative sense, as it were. We're all schooled. We all participate in the place, the box we found ourselves in, and that's how we build up ourselves, because as babies we have nothing, and when we grow up we become like our fathers or our peers or whatever of those in our country. And so if you have those negative things about different countries and whatever, that it then breeds, and then you can carry on these wars forever, like a sort of George Orwellian thing. No end to end any war, because that hatred keeps on building, because it's the makeup of the box. And so how do you blame the people? Like we're dipping people into a paint box and they come out those colours. Well, the box is contaminated. It's that's the problem, not the actual people. All of the people that we say are criminals and murderers and all that and the other, they're a product of that box. And I know we all have free choice and all that and the other. I'm not trying to say that criminals have a way out or for crimes they've done or murders or whatever. But what I'm saying is it's important to look at this box, because this box is the problem. Because we have these mindsets that allow us to deviate and go to these ways. Anyway, I'm running out of time on this camera. The other one I want to talk about was a program called, what was it called now? Was it Afterlife? After Death. Really great documentary about life after death, reincarnation. It looked like it was made by a spiritual kind of organisation because it had a very spiritual dynamic. I would have wished they would shown, because they showed a lot of people who had very awakening things, seeing God and this, that, and the other. Would have been like to see other cultures, how if they saw different, right, rather than Jesus, whether they saw Allah, whether Buddha, whether they saw Hindu gods and etc. If they maybe because they don't believe in life after death, reincarnation, but for those that do, it would have been interesting to see that kind of aspect, even from people of different continents, to see how it came about. The problem is, whenever you make any documentary, any program, you get to pick what you want to see based on the narrative you want to set. So it was a very spiritual thing, trying to say that, you don't interfere about death. But it really was awakening. It touched me. I felt I was teary at a lot of the moments. And, to think of that idea, how brilliant it would be if you died. Everyone fears death. But to know that moment, once you passed that pain of leaving everything behind, that's the biggest pain, not the actual physical pain of dying, but the actual, you're leaving by existence, you're leaving by everyone you love, and being able to have these one-time experiences that we all get, all of us who live, is then to go up to to a universe, to a bright light, and see there a beckoning of love, of God, of your Creator, of someone who's going to give you peace and eternal life, and the peace that you always desired, that we as men didn't choose for ourselves here, which we could have done because we were given free reign of it. To have Him control everything and us all to have love and to love one another and to feel that kind of love and peace. It was quite like the way they put it across. I'll put a clip of the trailer. It was very beautiful and it was very moving, and it does make you feel, when you watch these documentaries, you hear these people's how they went through it and how it had this experience, how it makes you not fear death if there is this life after. Of course, that is what the narrative was set to be, but yeah, it was really, really interesting. Anyway, that's me waffling about two things I've seen. I thought there was one more. If I remember it, I'll make another Pursuit of Truth. Anyway, take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.